leadership to validate the hard work I've put in and the dues I've paid. Never been too good at just going along. I guess I've always kind of been for the underdog. Favors for friends will get you in and get you far. Shouldn't be about who it is you know, but about how good you are. Don't wanna be a part of the good old boys club, cigars and handshakes. Appreciate you, but no thanks. Another gear in a big machine don't sound like fun to me. Don't wanna be part of the good old boys club.
And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele, backwoods Southern lawyer. Got my partner, Paul Rip, here with me today. How are you, Mr. Rip?
Very good, very good.
Survived the GD hurricane?
Well, Sally's the one that kicked me the hardest. I tell you, it's going to take me months to clean my yard up. But Zeta, I went up to Birmingham, and that thing went all the way through Birmingham, all the way up the highway. I could see where it caused damage and turned off a lot of power there in Birmingham, too.
And Rains, you out
there
in somewhere?
Holding it down.
Holding her down.
Holding it down.
So this is tropical storm number. How many? There's 27 letters in the alphabet, and we're already up to number 6. So
we've had like 70 storms this year. What a great year to be alive.
And don't forget who's president.
Yep.
COVID.
Not for long, let's hope.
Speaking of disasters, so Cade Kessler is going to join us later in the program and talk to us about the coal ash goings on. I thought that we would start the show off this time, and I'm going to run through some COVID numbers real quick. So
we've been in the red now for about 4 days.
So 9 million cases with 229,000 deaths. The United States yesterday had its largest increase of 90,000 confirmed new cases yesterday, Paul, October 29th.
The largest ever.
So that's a person getting diagnosed every second with coronavirus.
And for those that are listening, this is exactly what the health scientists predicted 2 months ago and have been saying it over and over and over again, and no one listening.
'Tis true. So let's just check out Alabama real quick. Anyway, Google's got a pretty good resource. I don't know where they're getting their information from, but it looks pretty decent. So, so oddly enough, we had a big spike, 1,300 cases on October 22nd, and looks like we're back up to 1,443. And Alabama, 189,000 cases with just under 3,000 deaths. So this weekend, Paul, it's Halloween. It's a full moon. It's actually a blue moon, and the time falls back.
This was set up to be the greatest Halloween in a decade for people like me that really love Halloween. And guess what I'll be doing?
What?
Sitting in this garage, smoking cigarettes, watching Captain Kangaroo, because I'm not going out and exposing myself or my family to COVID. And everybody's mad at me about it, but guess what? We're not trading in 2 weeks in the ICU on a ventilator for a bag of candy. I'll go buy a bag of candy.
Yep. I turned down I turned down a couple of parties myself. I'm going to be careful.
So, Raines, we got an election coming up.
Yes, sir. We got an election coming up on Tuesday.
And are these electoral college votes that you have on the map for us? Is that what I'm looking at? I know.
Yes, that's correct. What I have presented is my prediction, my personal prediction, the Russian Interference LLC 2020 election map. What you see there is what I predict is how the election's going to fall. Now,
next week we'll go over it.
And yeah, well, I mean, I'll have a more fluid map that we can update next week, but I hope we do an election day special or election night special. But what I want to point out here,
I'm game. We'll figure out how to live stream it too.
There we go. What I want to point out here on this map is a couple things. The red states are states that are going to vote Republican, and those electoral votes will go to the current president. Okay. The blue states, all right, are going to vote Democrat, and those will go to the challenger, which is Vice President Joe Biden. You'll see some difference in color in a couple of these states, and I have some slides that's going to help explain that. Like you'll see North Carolina is not exactly red, it's more of a pink, as is Ohio and Indiana. Those are states that are kind of in play, but I'll get more into that here in a few minutes. You'll hear, if you're watching the news and listen to the team of campaign stuff that's coming out right now, you would think that Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Ohio are in heavy play and are the big battleground states this year. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, based on the polling information that I've gathered and the research that I've done, Texas is not a battleground state, and it is going to go completely red for Donald Trump. Now, the reason is because for the every election in Texas has voted for a Republican president. Not since, good grief, I think the 80s did vote for a Democrat. But the thing is that we have these blue islands in the state, all right? They're the major population centers, and that's where educated people live. And they call us the coastal elites because we all live near water. The thing is that Houston, Dallas, Plano, Lubbock, Waco, all those high population centers are heavily Democratic. And there's been a ton of early voting. We've had 1.6 million people early vote in Harris County, Texas, the Houston metro area, which is phenomenal. And I guarantee you most of them are voting Democratic. However, that's not going to be enough to swing the rural areas of this state. So I'm not calling Texas as a battleground. I'm calling it solid red. Georgia, both candidates are putting in a lot of time in Georgia, and that usually indicates that you're in a battleground state when it's the home stretch of the election, and candidates are really putting in rally time and really putting in ad buys, which is where they buy television advertising and things like that. They're putting in a lot of money and a lot of time into Georgia. You would think it's a battleground state. I'm going to tell you now, it won't be. Georgia is red, 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 and always will be. Georgia is not going to swing Democrat. The only true battleground state we have right now is Florida. Florida could go either way. That's big. That's 29 electoral votes. That's huge. Ohio, maybe kind of, but I'm still calling them red because I just don't think they're going to be able to pull it off. Now, why are they not going to be able to pull it off? Because there is an age-old adage, and it's absolutely held to be true. Democrats vote early. Republicans vote day of. All right? People are saying right now, you can't believe the polls. You can't believe it because look what happened in 2016. Let me tell you something about polls. Polls is opinion converted to science. All right? Most of the polls that were done back in 2016, were weighted polls. Most polls are weighted. That means that a pollster collects a bunch of responses and then they adjust the answers by age, gender, political orientation, etc., so that the final count closely resembles the American electorate. I'm going to paraphrase something a journalist Derek Thompson wrote in The Atlantic just yesterday. He talked about, if the sample is 60% male, the pollster will want to give the women's responses a little more weight because women actually vote more than men. So what happened is that 2016, many pollsters failed to adjust for the fact that college-educated Americans are typically more likely to respond to surveys. Another way to say this is that pollsters undersampled non-college educated voters. Non-college educated white males is basically the category that is Trump's base.
Well, all they got to do, I was just saying, if they need to talk to those people, go to a Trump rally.
Well, that's the thing, is that they undercounted that, and we call that the diploma divide. They undercalculated it. It gave Trump an advantage among non-college educated voters. So in short, state pollsters made a huge, obvious mistake. Their surveys failed to account for 2016 most important demographic phenomenon, and that's the non-college educated voters who turned out to vote. Also, 2 weeks before the 2016 presidential election, there were still a full 15% of registered voters who, when polled, said they were undecided. Let me frame that up for right now. If you take 100 people that you know and you put them in a room, find me 15 people who hadn't made up their mind on this election.
Two people that are undecided because they don't want to sleep on the damn couch for the next 6
Right. It's maybe one or two. So the percentage of undecided is much lower. All the undecided voters last election broke late for Donald Trump. And a big part of that is because of the FBI released that they were investigating Hillary Clinton. That was 2 weeks before the election.
Right.
So I'm here to tell you, polls matter. Okay.
Crooked Hillary, the crooked emails, like every other Secretary of State kept.
Polls definitely matter this year. Okay. So I'm not saying that there's no battlegrounds this year, but I'm calling Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina for Trump, just to be safe. Now, Florida as a battleground, right now, it is a Biden want and a Trump need. Because if you look at my map, even with all of the battleground states going for Trump, it still has Biden winning this election. Move to the bar slide. 289 to 247. All right. That's done with, I use poll data collected from realclearpolitics.com. That's a fantastic website. If you are into polling and data, you pay a small fee and you have access to all manner of polling information from all polling companies across the globe. And that's how it goes. So next slide. Let's talk about the states that are going to go red for sure. I call these the Sons of the Confederacy and the Duck Dynasty franchises. Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Louisiana. These are states that are historic red. You've really got to work. Most of these states have not voted blue since Reconstruction. These are in the pot. Do you have
family in Arkansas that you're trying to keep happy? Because just showing a little barbecue doesn't really capture the essence of the redneckness of Arkansas.
Well, I picked that particular slide because that's a razorback being roasted, a wild hog being cooked.
Oh, it looks like a damn chicken leg.
No, that is a wild hog cut up and cooking in Arkansas. You'll recognize for the Alabama picture, that is.
I recognize your cousin with the pulling the rebel flag bathing suit out of her crack, and then I recognize Harvey Updike.
Yeah.
And then I recognize
Duck Dynasty.
Yeah, Phil
Robertson from Louisiana.
I didn't vote for Rick Tyler for Congress, but that's hilarious. Somebody would have to put that on a billboard.
So those are. I said this before. I said this back in 2016 when somebody said there's no way that Trump could get elected. I said, look, pay attention. Every swinging dick you see out there with a Duck Dynasty shirt on is going to vote for Donald Trump, and sure enough, they turned out. Next slide. That's 40 electoral votes for the Grand Dragon of the United States. Next slide. Now, this is the trespassers will be shot, survivors will be shot again column. These are the states where you're most likely to be killed on accident by a firearm. Alaska gets 3 votes. North Dakota is 3 votes. South Dakota is 3 votes. Wyoming, I was going to put pictures of the most of the best looking women from those territories, and I really couldn't find any from Wyoming.
There's got to be one, though.
There's got to be one. Colorado, that's a mistake on my part.
Pam Grier from Colorado?
No, Pam Grier is from Montana, and that's supposed to be Montana with 3 electoral votes. So it counts up as 15 electoral votes for Trump. I was going to try to find a good-looking woman from Wyoming to show, but I couldn't find any. So that's actually the top of the Teapot Dome in Wyoming. Of course, that's Governor Nome in South Dakota. And that picture of the woman from North Dakota is a middle school teacher who knocked down 11 young men under the age of 14. So that's for the gun loving.
She got 3 months probation.
Yep. That's for the gun loving people of those particular states who just really don't even care. There's only like 2 people per square mile. Let's move on to the next slide. These states, if we aren't hungover or in jail on November 3rd, we will go vote. These are states with huge drug and alcohol problems, but by God, they're going to turn out for our man in Washington. Kentucky, home of Mitch McConnell, will have 8 electoral votes. West Virginia, home of the immortal Jessica White, will have 5. And Oklahoma, the birthplace and raising residence of Dr. Phil, will contribute 7 electoral votes. All of these votes count. All of these votes are red, red, red. They've never flipped these states. They've always voted Republican because that's the kind of people they are. Those are definites for President Trump. Next slide.
I think we can count the tap dancing hillbillies out of coming down off the mountain to vote, but that's just me.
These are the lifetime members of FarmersOnly.com and one lady who still drives her Fiero. I say that these states are pretty much just farmers. The overwhelming majority of people that work in the state are in the agriculture industry for some point, except for Missouri, where they kind of have a lot of people in the tourist industry. But regardless, farmers have come out and said, you know what, he kind of murdered us with the tariff thing, but, you know, none of us want to be socialist because farmers are not generally terribly well educated.
How many years in a row did they have to plow their soybeans under because they couldn't sell them to anybody?
You know what? I really don't have much for the American farmer. I think,
or whatever.
I think the American farmer is a person. I think the American farmer is an institution. I think this country, this planet cannot exist without the American farmer. However, there is not a single American farmer in this United States that understands what socialism is, because every one of them is cashed a farm subsidy check.
I was going to say, they got a lot of money in subsidies, buddy. A lot of money.
So that's 31 electoral votes for a president who thinks corn and potatoes don't belong in vegetable soup. Next slide, please. There will be church, by God. These are 2, by God, religiously controlled states that always are going to vote red. Utah, thank God, that is the Mormon serial killer, Mr. Bishop there, with 6 electoral votes. And the right hand of Jesus Christ himself, Vice President Mike Pence from Indiana.
The chairman of the White House coronavirus
task force, by God.
With his incompetency. Yeah.
We're rounding the curve.
Who won't... rounding the curve, won't wear a mask, won't isolate after everybody on his staff tested positive for COVID.
A new person every second in this country, and we're rounding the corner, boys.
And those are 17 electoral votes for the president who used tear gassers on protesters at a church. Let's move on. Who else is going to vote for the great leader? Well, that's where it ends, sadly, because right now, the vice president is polling with the following numbers. These are worshipers of New England's Patriots quarterback Tom Brady, in a sign that, by God, Joe Biden can unite anything. Maine, Massachusetts, Vermont, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Delaware. The New England states, that's 36 total electoral votes, including his home state, for a guy that's an Eagles fan. All right? These are all worshipers of Tom Brady. And yet, an Eagles fan has got them united, that they are all going to come in and vote for him. All right? These are all sports people from those states, fans and whatnot. Next slide, let's talk about unity. Because the other big portion of people he's going to get are states who want to see Tom Brady dead and his body on display. New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Washington, D.C. 76 incredibly unifying electoral votes for yet another Philadelphia Eagles fan. All right? Joe Biden has united the haters of Tom Brady and the worshipers of Tom Brady to come together, and they are going to vote for him on Election Day. That is a huge chunk of the American electorate, and they're all voting for him. Next slide, please, sir. Now, Virginia, I've always said, is a state that all they do is fine-tune their resumes for the next administration, because that's where all the people in Washington, D.C. that work, they all live in Virginia for the most part. Some live in Maryland, but you got to make over a GS-15 for that. That's 13 electoral votes for a father. Even those boys could never hate the champions of Charlottesville, Virginia, you'll see there. Next slide, please, sir. Now, let's look at the Midwest. Your boss probably has a photo of Sacco and Vanzetti on the wall. Anybody who's familiar with the American labor movement knows who Sacco and Vanzetti are. Yeah. Two anarchists who were executed wrongly for murders they didn't commit back in the late 1800s.
You can't make an omelet, Rains, without breaking a few eggs.
That's exactly right. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, heavy labor states. Those are states where the AFL-CIO is headquartered. They are states with the overwhelming majority of union members. That's 40 electoral votes for the man who knows all about talking to the boss. You can give away New England, and those 3 states in the Midwest are going to carry you. That's fantastic. Great job, Biden. Next slide. Now, these are the states where you either have a Punisher tattoo or a Dreamcatcher tattoo. You're either one or the other. All right. Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico. Those are all the governors of those states. All fantastic people. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 Democrats. Arizona. You would think Arizona's a red state, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
The ghost of Joe Arpaio is gone, buddy. Arizona has a Republican governor, but that's only because he got elected 4 years ago. They're probably going to end up with a blue governor very, very soon. All of their Senate and all of their representative seats have been flipping. It is a blue state. We're counting 42 electoral votes for a candidate who supports guns and dream catchers because it's America, and you can have both. People in those states are either members of a militia or a faith. So it could go either way, but it's going to go blue this time around. Let's see the next one. Well, I'm going to get dirty emails about this one. These states are absolutely fired up for a Biden presidency. Washington, Oregon, and California. California, of course, is the big prize for the Dems every time it's in play. 74 electoral votes for President Biden. Now, if you go back to my bar slide I had there, you'll see that my estimates are based on polling data, and they show a commanding lead, 289 to 247 for Trump. That's with Trump winning all the battleground states that are in play. If one of those battleground states swings, it turns into a landslide for Biden, and we could possibly have an election night announcement for president. President Trump is never going to concede. He is going to tie this up as much as he can. This is the worst scenario outcome. What we're going to talk about next, and I'm just going to briefly hit these, is I want y'all to pay attention to the following races. There's some pretty important races, and they're ones to watch because this is a historical election. All right. Now, before I move on, do y'all have any questions about my electoral college map?
No, I'm following.
Well, I think you might be wrong about Michigan, and I still say Florida is a toss-up. There's lots of people that are going to vote Dem because of the major metropolitan areas that we have in Florida.
Right. The thing about Michigan
is
that
I think they can outvote the crackers.
We'll see. It's going to come down to the Latino vote in Florida. It always does. It comes down to who the Cubans are going to support, the Cubans in exile, and that's who wins or loses Florida. Because that balances out the silver vote, the Silver Fox Party vote, which are voters over the age of 80 nowadays. Let me tell you about why I disagree with you on Michigan. Michigan has voted for a Democratic president for 9 out of the last 10 elections. Michigan is a historic blue state. Trump only won that state by 0.7 of a point in the 2016 election. And this stuff that the governor has done and endured is galvanizing her support. I believe it is solid blue, and all of those votes are going to go in this year.
So I got a question for you. Are you off camera on purpose?
No, my
webcam
fell. Sorry about that. Okay, hang on. Let me.
There we go. At the top,
it just kind of fell down.
And
Sorry about that.
I hadn't bothered to come over and check it out in a while. I've just been looking at this. Okay, so I want to switch over to a little bit of local election news.
Well, I got a thing on them too. So go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, well let's talk about it for a second because
let's go through.
Doug Jones was the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Alabama. He has sponsored a dozen bipartisan bills since he's been in there.
Yep.
And we know, and like I said, I've met Tuberville a couple of times. He's definitely the most important person in the room. Just ask him. And we know nothing about his politics or policies other than he was involved in a what's a good way to say it, Paul?
He was involved in 3 Ponzi schemes. 3.
And now he's involved in another one, and he's running for office.
And did you guys hear that there was a debate? Jones showed up. He did not.
That's correct.
That's just incredible. And he's more than likely going to be our next senator.
That's absolutely true. Jones has outraised Tuberville 4-1 in this election cycle. But I want this to be a bellwether to any people who see money as the deciding factor in a race. Tommy Tuberville is literally laid back in a recliner with a garden and gun looking for direction or decoration ideas for his newest Ponzi scheme headquarters, the office of a U.S. senator. Jones is going to get the doors beat off of him. And this is to be in a testament to how powerful college football is in a state with a low high school graduation rate.
Yeah. Well, again, coming back from Birmingham yesterday, I was truly impressed with the number of Doug Jones signs. I think it's going to be a little tighter than you think, Raines. And I don't know. I guess I'm always for the underdog, but I just gotta. I don't know. It just wouldn't surprise me if he barely tweaked it out. We'll see.
It would be surprising to me. I'm not calling that the biggest long shot of this election. I have those to name here, but I'm going to tell you it's in contention to be the highest, one of the highest long shot odds. I mean, I would lay 85-1.
Well, all the national news agencies are agreeing with you on that.
It's one of those things, Paul. We can want somebody to get elected. We can really get on our knees and pray that this person gets elected. But it comes down to it. People that care more about college football than they do politics vote for communism.
And you're in a straight ticket state. You know,
Alabama is a straight red ticket state. You're absolutely right. You can still straight ticket vote, and that's how people are going to vote.
Yeah, I just walk in, one click, done. I don't care who the candidates are at all.
There's a couple of seats that are up for grabs this time, and a couple of them to pay attention to. One of them, of course, is the South Carolina Senate seat, where Lindsey Graham, the Republican incumbent and overall lion of the Senate, is facing a strong challenge from a Democrat named Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison's a trailer park to Yale to Georgetown law story. He's a former aide to James Clyburn and was the chairman of the South Carolina Democratic Party. And he's seeking to unseat one of the most shitheaded senators in history.
And Harrison has raised a phenomenal amount of money, too.
In the biggest record-setting fundraising in the history of the American electorate, Jamie Harrison has raised $57 million.
Man.
3 months. He is getting Democrat money from all over the country. That is the most a non-incumbent Democratic Senate candidate has raised in the history of elections ever. Yeah, but what we talked about before, how undecided voters break late in the election, in that Senate district right now, 12% of African Americans are still polling as undecided. And there's also something they don't talk about a lot on the news. There's a deeply conservative third-party independent that's still on the ballot. He managed to make his way onto the ballot. He was somebody that was challenging Lindsey Graham because he didn't think Lindsey Graham was hardcore Republican enough for the citizens of South Carolina. And his name's still on the ticket. So even people that are mad at Lindsey Graham with what he's been doing and nobody's giving money to him, they may not vote for Jamie Harrison. They may vote for this other third candidate.
Right.
So it's a real long shot. But I think it's worth betting on to hedge other bets, as it were. even now with all that money and all that ad buy and Lindsey Graham begging for money on Fox News and everything else, he's still polling 3 points ahead.
Man.
Now, he was polling 17 points ahead 3 months ago. Now it's down to 3 points ahead. And if they polled again between now and Tuesday, they'd probably narrow that margin to 2, but he's still ahead. We'll see. Another one that's a really good one is the Virginia House District, seat 5. All right. Bob Good, the Republican, is running against Cameron Webb. It's a Democrat. It's an open contest. That seat has been red for 20 years. This is another demonstration of how Virginia is flipping blue all the way. Good's a former fundraiser for the Liberty University Athletic Department, right? Ring any bells with anybody? And he was a county supervisor for a long time. He was one of the elected supervisors. Webb's a doctor who has worked rotations in the hospital for 9 years and still works them now treating COVID patients. Good's a Second Amendment champion, one of those guys that while he was county supervisor, pushed for his county to be a Second Amendment refuge where no matter what, you can come here, they can't take your guns.
Yeah. And
he's also one that his campaign page, the top of his campaign page says God's goodness at the top of it. And he's the one that he's the candidate who got a lot of national heat because he purported that Planned Parenthood is selling harvested infant parts on online to try to fund their stem cells research. The guy's a crackpot.
God, guns, and abortion. That's all.
That's right. That's all he's running on. Well, that fundraiser from Liberty University has been outraised 4-1 by Webb, and polls are calling it a toss-up. I'm calling it a blue slide, and it's just another indicator that Virginia is flipping all the way blue. It's no longer purple. Mm-hmm. Now, a couple of other that are fun to watch, that you should watch, that are indicators of how things are going. I mentioned that Texas is never going to go blue, ever, not for president. We have a couple of races. In the Texas House 22, Troy Nehls is the Republican. He's the sheriff there. He's running against Sri Kulkarni. This area was deep red 10 years ago because it was very rural. I used to work out there. It was very rural. There was not a lot of development, but in the last 10 years, it's shown explosive development because Chevron's built offices out there, BP, Exxon, they've all built offices out there and brought in a lot of people and a lot of growth. We're talking like 200% growth in that area. And I think they're going to grow the red out. It's one of the most racially diverse districts in Texas, thanks to NASA and the energy, stuff that I talked about. Pete Olson had that seat for 20 years and barely beat Kulkarni in the last election, and he retired because he knew that it was going to be such a tough election this year. He didn't want to be the one to lose it. That seat's going to flip. Watch for it. Kulkarni has been endorsed by the Houston Chronicle and by Vice President Joe Biden. That one's going to flip. Texas Senate, here's where we run into what my theory is that Texas is never going to flip red. John Cornyn has been the senator from Texas for God knows how long. He's got a strong challenger from MJ Hager. She has raised so much money, and this is so many people want to see Cornyn go down, but Texas is red, and red it shall stay until it turns into a ghost town. Hager is like a modern Icarus. She is flying too close to the sun, and anyone who bets on this long shot deserves to lose their ass. We want her to win, but she won't. Trump's going to carry Texas like an empty serving tray, easily. All right? Now, there is something really fun to watch, and if you're into elections at all, the thing you should be paying attention to is the absolute dumpster fire of the Georgia special Senate election. Are you guys familiar with that?
Right.
Kelly Loeffler, the woman who apparently has been living under a rock since 2015, who says she has no idea what the Access Hollywood tape says. She was appointed by the governor of Georgia to fill the seat left by Johnny Isaacson, who retired because his Republican and health protection spell wore off and, he got sick. She's supposed to serve the last 2 years of his seat, and the winner of this election gets it. She is running, get this, against 21 candidates. There are 21 people on the ballot for that Senate seat. There's 8 Democrats, 6 Republicans, including Representative Doug Collins, who we all know from the House Judiciary Committee, 5 independents, 1 Green, and 1 Libertarian. There is absolutely no possibility at all for a 50% majority in this race, and it'll be a January runoff. I'm going to call it as the Democrat Doug Lieberman is going to be running against Republican Doug Collins in the runoff, and the general election is going to decide the winner. Like Paul, we talked about last week, this is one of those races that's going to be decided after the election.
Right.
And whoever gets elected president is going to decide this election. Because if Trump doesn't get re-election, Collins might as well drop off the ticket because he's not going to get elected to that seat. Doug Lieberman will sweep, and absolutely the converse will be true.
Yeah, well, that goes kind of like what you said. You know, we were discussing if the crystal ball was able to tell us who the president is, and it happened to be Biden, well, then why would you vote for Tuberville? Because he'd never get anything done in 6 years. It'd just be sitting there. And that's what, you know, I don't think a lot of people think of. But of course, you don't know who's going to win one way or another. So you just got to go with your gut.
All right. Your 30 minutes is up, Mr. Rushin.
All right, fine.
Okay. So I want to talk to you about the constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. We did an entire episode about how the Constitution of 1901 is the most racist, regressive document that has ever been cobbled together by politicians in the history of the United States, and that's saying something.
Yes.
So Amendment 1 is just a bunch of horse manure where they're saying only a citizen has the right to vote in Alabama. It's just never been codified. You know, you had to have a driver's license and all the other bona fide you have to go vote, but it never was actually stated that you had to be a citizen of the United States. So we're clearing that up for everybody. The next amendment that I wanted to talk about was the state court system. This amendment would change the way that the administrative director of courts is chosen. It expands membership of the Judicial Inquiry Commission. Paul, you better pipe up on this one, from 9 to 11. It also ends automatic suspension of judges after a complaint is forwarded to the JIC.
Well,
we got to take care of all these judges that are out there, you know.
Well, don't worry.
Taking care of us.
It doesn't make any difference what they do. The judiciary hasn't shown any type of transparency or
not in
accountability.
Alabama. Certainly not. So
No
Amendment 3 would change the time that a judge who is appointed to fill a vacancy in a circuit or district court would serve before having to stand for election if they're appointed by the governor. So right now, if one of our judges retired and there was a year left in his term, the appointed person would run for that position in a year. Yes. This is saying that they would not have to defend that position for at least 2 years. And anyway, I don't think it's a good thing. I think people ought to vote on their judges. Amendment 4 would start a process to remove outdated and nullified racist language. We're not going to have a big shouting match about this one again, but like I said, take the whole damn thing and throw it out if you want to remove racist and hateful things from the document. Just start all over. 5 and 6. This is what we talked about the other night. The law says that people who use force, including deadly force, in defense of themselves or others, can be exempted from prosecution if they can show in court by preponderance of the evidence that they were justified in using force. So this is the stand your ground law on steroids for 2 counties in Alabama. Any ideas why they deserve this special consideration, Rains?
No, I missed that.
Okay, well, I don't get it either. So Amendment 2 in particular, I want to take a look at this website. Vote yes on Amendment 2 November 3rd. And we're going to watch just a little bit of this real quick. $320,000 projected. So guess who all the folks are who are saying this is a great idea? The city of Daphne, the city of Bay Minette, the city of Fairhope, the city of Foley, the city of Gulf Shores, the town of Loxley, Orange Beach, Robertsdale, Silver Hill, Summerdale, Central Baldwin Chamber, Eastern Shore Chamber, North Baldwin Chamber, South Baldwin Chamber, on and on and on. The mayor of Bay Minette gave us a nice quote. The sheriff is saying we really need to be able to move people in evacuations. The folks that own Oak Hollow Farms are sitting in the rocking chairs are for it. Why the hell wouldn't we be for it, Paul Rip?
Well, you read the article last week in Lanyap by Gabe Times, Cart Before the Horse, voter approval or not. The state may condemn the property for the Beach Express extension. Well, that's giving you an indication that, you know, the Beach Express extension is going to be built one way or another. It's just whether you want to tack on a toll for the customers that are coming down here. To me, you know, you have visitors coming from all over. They'll be connecting I-10, I-65 to this. And welcome to Alabama. Pay your toll here before you can go to the beach. I don't know how that's going to come across. And also, that's going to suck a lot of traffic off of 59. I know that's supposed to be that way, but in many other areas, when this happens, slowly but surely, that major corridor starts going downhill. So we'll see. I'm against the toll personally. I think that I think the state can pay for it. I don't think we should be charging.
Okay, so let's go back to the article that we covered last time, Cart Before the Horse. Gabe Times wrote it. And in that article, the state has said that they are going to go ahead and condemn the right-of-way whether or not this project happens or not.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct.
So this is, like Raines gave you a resource earlier, this is another resource that everybody can keep an eye on, this track bill website. And this is the actual language, 46 pages here, of the bill establishing, amending the Constitution and establishing the toll authority.
Oh boy, toll authority.
Yeah, well, it's just now getting interesting, Paul. So let me show you a couple.
There's your next problem, toll authority.
Yeah, so
of course, they've already selected the toll authority.
So if you go to our Backstory Podcast Facebook page, I did a post on this, and the Choose to Baldwin group. If you click on these, they'll open a link, and you'll go forward. There's a group called Gumbo. Are you familiar with Gumbo?
Oh yeah, they helped us get in the Taxman.
Right, and then I used your catalyst to describe how they're involved, and then the Coastal Alabama Partnership. And when you look at the board members from these organizations and the people involved, it's all the same people, right? Okay, so how do you think these people are removed from their office? Like if we got a bad board member or toll authority member,
wouldn't the board just meet and hold a vote to get rid of them?
Oh no. We have a whole special impeachment section 173 of the Constitution that says, gives us you're a procedural guy, Raines. You're going to love this shit. Here's the procedure for that. And then there's a separate procedure over here, which is actually referred to in the law. It doesn't actually send you to 173. It sends you to 175.
Well, and in Baldwin County,
talks about, the removal of these certain individuals and how they have to be removed under Section 173 of the Constitution. So it's even more nebulous than that. When you start trying to figure out how these people are removed, it sends you to 175 that then refers to 173.
Also, if you look real close in Baldwin County, you'll see that these boards, all of a sudden, the people that are elected to office that are on the boards are getting the contracts now. No one's ever been able to do anything about it. But they're on the board. They know what's going on. They're the first ones that bid it, seem to get away with it. Public doesn't seem to care. Certainly state authorities like Ethics and Attorney General are turning a blind eye to it.
All right. I want to do some rip report.
All right. One will go to Lanyap. Do no harm. This is a healthcare providers are wrestling over the proposed surgery center in Fairhope. That's by Gabe Times. And this is the MAP project, MAP campus. And it seems that there's, for the certificate of need review on the board, the Thomas Hospital people are complaining a little bit, and in the emergency department, especially Director Randall Knutson, expressed concerns over the distance between the proposed surgery center and USA's main campus in Mobile, suggesting physicians who treat patients at the MAP campus may not have admitting privileges at Thomas Hospital, and Infirmary Health would not have, quote unquote, direct access to the medical records of those patients. Infirmary Health did not respond to the request for comment for the article, but that is a major concern if you're not able to get medical records shared. That's the last thing you want to do. So I can see this is going to be a big political move.
It's already a political move.
Yeah,
and if you read the entirety of the article, it'll say among those who signed the letters in support of Infirmary Health are CEO Mark Nix, several of the partner physicians, the outgoing mayors of Fairhope and Daphne, Baldwin County Sheriff Huey House Mack, Regions Bank President John Turner Jr., automotive dealer Ty Thompson, who gives a hoot, and T. Bester Ward, chairman of the board of the Alabama State Port Authority. So they already got all their wagons circled.
Oh, yeah.
This is just a matter of who's got more influence and who's going to win the arm wrestling
That's
match.
Correct. This is a done deal. Next is the, I thought, real interesting article by Dale Leash. Those of you that know Benville Square, they've got a problem there with the squirrels.
Hey, wait. Rains, how much you think it costs for the city of Mobile to pay somebody per squirrel to trap a squirrel?
By God, I wouldn't do it for
anywhere
$11
between $100.
Yeah. I'd for $11 a squirrel, but I don't want to criminally undercut anybody.
Well, they're getting $25.
25. That's for up to 200 squirrels. Okay. And you're not able to keep.
If there's 200 squirrels in Bienville Square, we need to call Guinness.
Right. And these are live. Can't keep the pelts or cut the tails. So
anybody that hurts know they covered in wolves right now too.
Great articles in there with Damn the Torpedoes by Rob Holbert. You got to have a plan and hidden agenda, the long and short of it, by Ashley Trice. This edition of Lanyap is totally chock full, of course, of predictions and, whatever you may think about the election next Tuesday, where you're going to be and what's going on. The cover I thought was hilarious. It's got a tombstone, and the top caption is "Scared," and you've got Biden and Trump peeking around the edge of it. Kind of a double meaning for Halloween as well. But High Anxiety by Dale Leash. Political junkies will be nervously watching Trump and Biden contest, and you're going to hear both sides of the argument in several different of these articles. Great lanyap to get. Also, everybody knows Jerry Carl is up for the Senate race, and the battle for Mobile County Commissioner that he left. That position is with Jenny Aris, who is a Democrat and a English professor at the University of South Alabama, and she's running against Randall Duet, who is Republican and most likely will carry that, since they are distinguishing themselves Republican and Democrat. But get a lanyap and go into it. You will enjoy it. Keep it for next Tuesday. And then while we've been on the air, we got notice of another lanyap article coming out. I believe it's Gabe Times. And this is one of those where, sorry, folks, but I told you so. Those people in Fairhope, bend over. Get ready, Fairhope. Here it comes. You have elected a mayor.
Had your wife and had your husband, because they raping everybody out here.
You have elected someone with a high school education who now is going to have a pay package worth $160,000 as a mayor. I'm telling you, folks in Fairhope, In 4 years, you better get ready.
That's 112 more than the previous mayor.
That 112 more. And think about this, people. That's $640,000 for 4 years, over $500,000. Then I want you to look at your kids and tell them how important an education is. Because in Fairhope, you don't have to have an education. You can get 160, no education whatsoever. Now, this is going to be a green light. This is a green light for the whole city of Fairhope is totally controlled now by Catalyst and Scott Boone Consulting. Scott Boone's father is on the council. He's privileged all types of information. We've been telling everybody this. No one's been listening. They are going to this. They are being in office on November 2nd. Yet they're coming out of the box. They're coming out of the box with this $160,000 package. Watch and see what Mr. Boone, Mr. Burrell, and Mr. Brown do in the next 6 months. Because the thinking on these people is once they get elected, whatever they want to do that is the most audacious is do it first. Because in 3 or 4 years, people won't remember. And that's true in Fairhope. They had the apartment shoved down their throat, and then when it came time to vote, they forgot about that. They forgot about the K1 Center. They forgot about the recreation, 2.6 mil. I mean, it is going to be chaotic. And this is the green flag. This is ready, set, go, folks. And they're not going to care what you think or how you think, and forget any open records law.
Hey, Paul,
forget it.
Do you remember this?
What's that?
That's the slide that we had right before the municipal election where we tried to warn everybody.
Right. Watch and see what happens in Fairhope. You're certainly going to hear
good vibes, from us. Man. Good vibes.
Yeah, you're going to hear good vibes, all right. The only thing that the mayor of Fairhope is going to need is she's going to get $160,000 a year, and the only thing she's going to need for office is a pair of scissors and a rubber stamp, because the council is going to run the town.
So the other thing I wanted to update everybody on, as far as I know, head dingaling in charge up in North Alabama, former Chief Justice Roy Moore, his lawsuit against the governor related to her mask requirement has fallen on deaf ears with the court and still hasn't been resurrected. So hopefully that'll stay there. And just a couple more things I wanted to run over with you guys.
Roy Moore's horse does not like him.
Is that right?
That's right. Sally does not like him. Or is it Sassy? I can't remember.
Well, one of the things that came out this way, I want to talk a little bit of lighter side stuff while we're at it. There's some child that dressed up as Governor Meemaw for Halloween. I thought that was quite clever. What's some other Halloween news, Paul?
I don't know, man. I used to have some outrageous parties in Birmingham for Halloween, but I hadn't been. I mean, we used to have some pretty insane parties on the South Side Birmingham, but in Fairhope, I haven't gone to any. Now, I'm hoping people are thinking about staying socially distanced, and you got these kids running around grabbing candy everywhere. So but the other thing in Fairhope is, understand our $160,000 mayor is also going to have the Christmas lighting and inviting the entire general public to come to that. So I don't know what to say anymore other than I told you so.
So if you really want to scare the bejesus out of your children, you can take them to the Mobile Museum of History. And it's here. I'm just going to read the first part of the article to you. It says it's only a coincidence that an infant-sized cast iron mummy will be on display at the History Museum of Mobile starting the eve of Halloween.
As it should be.
The 150-year-old artifact surely could pass as a Halloween prop. The so-called Fisk mummy is a metallic coffin molded in the shape of a burial shroud with an oval-shaped glass window instead of a mask. Imagine a steampunk steampunk version of an Egyptian coffin or of a baby Iron Man from the Victorian era. Fist mummies were initially designed to protect people, not freak them out. The contagious diseases were very prevalent in the mid 19th century, and the airtight design quarantined the remains of the dead from those viewing them. Okay. So, I guess being from the coast, you realize that yellow fever came here from Europe or from sub-Saharan Africa on slave ships. Right. And so in 1702, there was a Trojan horse that, do you know about the cassette girls?
Do I? I'm the one told you about it.
Oh, you know about the cassette girls. Okay. Well, this was in the story. I've heard about them several times, but so yellow fever arrived 2 years following the 1702 founding of Mobile. And anyway, they used to round up prisoners, female prisoners, and send them over here for the colonists to marry.
And who did that?
Yeah,
and so
the daughters of prostitutes.
Right. So anyway, these young women, they think, brought this disease over here because the city was the capital of French Louisiana. The men put in a request to get Parisian women and then not the usual batch of criminals. King Louis agreed, and in mid 1704 sent 20 young virgins to Mobile on a ship called the Pelican. The women were known as Pelican girls, cassette girls, or casket girls for the boxes called cassettes that they would carry with their belongings to America. That's ironically, right. They brought yellow fever, and that led to the destruction of Blakely and numerous other early colonies along Mobile Bay.
It's a good article. It's written by Ryan Zigraff, again in Lanyap. Cover story this week. Give you more insight on the pandemic that some people think is still a hoax.
Well, do you think it's a hoax?
I don't think it's a hoax. I'm taking it damn serious. I'll tell you, you go Birmingham VA, Birmingham Hospital, Kirkland Clinic, you go up there, you can't get in the hospital, you can't get off the concrete without 3 different nurses looking at you, and everybody's got a mask, and they're taking it very, very seriously, and I do too. Yes. I hope everybody else will.
I guess you're wondering why I'm showing a website for an archery place in South Bend, Indiana. But believe it or not, that's who I had to order a bow and arrow from because no one in the southeastern United States carries traditional archery gear.
Oh, so, well, what about the
if anybody's looking for that?
What about the gun manufacturer in Troy?
Oh, yeah. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So Paul, I know you've handled weapons, but I've never seen, like I've seen a few handguns of yours, but Range can tell you Kimber is as premium as a handgun manufacturer as there is in the world. And they're moving their operation to Troy, Alabama.
I wonder why we didn't get them at the mega site. They probably came in
If we
second.
Just had something like the mega site, we could dangle in front of somebody.
We probably came in second on that one and lost to Troy. We'll have to wait and hear about that.
The metropolis and mecca of Troy, Alabama beat us all out for this. And I didn't even know they were on the hunt. I mean, I would have thought I'd have heard about that, but I did not. So, Rains, got any final words of wisdom?
Early voting in Texas ends at 7 o'clock tonight. If you hadn't done it, get out there and do it. Early voting's wrapping up around the country. Get ready. Cast your vote. Do not mail in your ballot. Carry it with you. If you have a mail-in ballot and you hadn't mailed it yet, carry it with you when you go vote in person and give it to the election judge. They will make sure that the vote is counted. You cannot rely on the postal system to get it in on time right now. And with the many challenges to late counting of ballots being upheld by the Supreme Court, I would advise you to go ahead and carry your vote in if you can't, or else it might not be counted. So overall, no matter who you support, get out there and vote.
I hope everybody listens to that because that's your voice is voting. And no matter how much you complain, and we can tell you that we do a lot of that, your only real chance at making change is by voting.
And I'm going to tell you right now, anybody out there that talks to me on a regular basis, if I find out you didn't vote, I'm not going to talk to you at all.
Don't want to hear any complaints.
That's right.
Well, the only other thing that I wanted to not really cover, I pointed everybody in direction of Section 230, the Internet Censorship and Decency Act, whatever the hell it's called,
Right.
47 USC Section 230.
Well, you see where Spanish Fort, they changed all the computers, didn't you?
No, sir.
Yeah.
Mike McMillan?
Yeah, they changed them from touch screens to slap screens.
Damn, that was a courtesy laugh.
I got that from Lanyap. I got to give him credit for that.
All right. Well, anyway, go check out the protection for private blocking and screening of offensive materials. There was a big Senate hearing this week. And what I thought was funny is the chairman says, Mark Zuckerberg, we really appreciate you showing up. And the first thing I wish he would have said was, well, it is a congressional subpoena and I had no choice. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think that if you go watch the hearing on C-SPAN, it's about 3.5 hours, you will see that the majority of the senators were more worried about the fact that the president was being censored while the leaders of other countries could basically say anything they wanted to without any fear of censorship. And if we get partisan politics involved in this, it's going to be a damn mess that nobody's going to like the answer or the solution.
And my final note is to Fairhope, you better be paying attention because the incoming mayor is going to be getting $160,000 pay package.
Maybe. They
and
got
November,
vote on it, right?
Oh, they got to vote on it. Oh, that's right. All those
when
people on the council.
In.
Yeah, she's going to get all kind of opposition, That thing's going. But this is being done before she's sworn in. So you people in Fairhope, get ready because wait till Boone, the 3Bs, wait till the 3Bs start stinging you. You're going to get it. I just can't, if I predicted it, I still wouldn't believe it, but the audacity of the Fairhope Catalyst Scott Boone group is, if people don't stand up, they're going to run over you for the next 4 years like you've never been run over before. All you're going to see is tracks.
So, Raines, are the Proud Boys going to show up with firearms at the polling places? What kind of controversial activities do you think we're going to see on Election Day? Or do you think
I'm not going to show my cards too much on that? I'm just going to tell you, if they show up at my precinct, they better be prepared to shoot somebody.
Damn. What about you, Paul? Did you early vote or you going to the polling place?
No, I early voted. I was hoping to be out of the country, but still can't get to where I want to go. So I voted that way. But you're going to have all types of different intimidation no matter what happens on Tuesday. Wednesday morning, there's going to be a great deal of people that are going to be totally elated and a great deal of people that are going to be pissed off. So we'll just wait and see what happens on Tuesday. And maybe you're right, Raines. Maybe we can do a little bit of a live show following it that night.
So our Secretary of State was on Good Morning America yesterday, and he did a really good job. And he basically told them, he said, Alabama will have all of our votes counted November 3rd.
I like him. I like him. I think he's been very good. I wish he'd stayed in the race he was in.
Yeah, that's not. He'll be running for governor. He'll be our next governor.
Right. Well, he does seem to have more scruples than most of them up there.
Well, he has enough sense to stay out of the bull crap going on at the State House and stay in his own lane, which he's pretty dang good at handling what's in his lane.
Right. Right.
And there are a lot of people like the Elliots of the world that can't figure out where the hell the lines are, much less find a lane.
Correct. Everybody be safe on Halloween. Watch your kids. Don't eat too much candy and read the news about Fairhope.
All right, guys. Well, I certainly appreciate everybody's time. Keep your powder dry and vote November 3rd. So, Cade, how are you, man? We appreciate you joining us.
I'm well. Made it through the storm okay. Hope everybody else did, and appreciate y'all having me.
So we've got a Lanyap article called Up in the Air. ADM holds hearing on Alabama power emission permits. And you are quoted several times in here. Can you just give us a thumbnail of what the power company is seeking with these 3 permit applications?
So yeah, these are 2 permit applications. They need renewed, 1 air and 1 water permit that have been quote expired for quite some time. And at the end of the day, the state environmental agency, ADM, has been so overwhelmed, under resourced, understaffed that they haven't had a chance to get to these permits. It's kind of important. We're talking about a major coal burning / natural gas burning power plant, so these permits need to be updated so that they're making sure we're protecting the Mobile River and the Bay and the Delta. And then the 3rd permit was to do with, it's called a prevention of significant deterioration. And it's they're wanting to put in some new natural gas burners at that plant. And so they need a permit, of what we call PSD permit, for the combined cycle gas burner.
Do you remember off the top of your head what year Barry was built?
I believe it was in the 1950s. I'd have to pull the exact number, but it's about 65 years old, I believe.
Yeah, 67-year. I just found it in the article I'm looking at. 67-year-old facility, and these things were when they built shit in the 50s. They didn't build it to operate until 2020. You know what I mean? It'd be like it's like we're driving a 57 Buick.
Well, it's almost worse than that when you look at this thing in the picture you got here. What we got going on is this discharge up near where the stacks are. It's going in a big pond, and then it's coming out a weir at the end of the pond. So it's kind of like 15th century technology. It's like, how should we treat this ash that's left over from burning coal and has all the things that are concentrated and don't burn, arsenic and selenium and a host of heavy metals? Well, we'll just put it in a big pond, hope it settles out, and at the end of the pond, we'll let whatever comes out come out. So.
And let's surround the pond with water.
Right.
The river. They built it on the riverbank. So anyway, it's a 600-acre pond. They're going to be making application in the future for a cap-in-place permit, and that's yet to be announced, correct?
That's correct.
And one of the things that they're asking for here is a wastewater discharge permit because, as you can see in this photograph, the coal ash pile is full of water, and they can't just take the water and dump it over in the river because it's full of selenium, barium, arsenic, fill in the blanks with heavy metals. And also, it's full of ash, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea is that the water keeps the ash from blowing out of the pile. So, the water's by design. So then they're going to take the water out and cover it with dirt. And one of the quotes that I saw from you in here was saying that based on the gallons per minute, 5.76 million gallons per day that they're requesting the permit for, that means they could drain that whole pond in like 5 days.
Yeah, it's like 9 days. And for what it's worth, I'll try to put an analogy here for us, and they all fall apart eventually, but there's not a specific limit. There's not a quantitative limit on you can only release this many gallons. So in this dewatering plan that Alabama Power wrote and ADM, the state, used as part of their permit, they say, hey, we'll slow down the flow because we want to protect the integrity of the pond, structural integrity, and we'll slow it down so that we can make sure we treat it and all this kind of stuff. But there's no limit. There's no, and we'll never exceed blank. So it's kind of like if when I got my driver's license, I told the state troopers, hey guys, I'm going to follow the speed limit, but let's not actually put a speed limit on the highway. Let's just go with my assurances that I'll do a good job. So while, we hope and expect that Alabama Power will do what they need, they could, if they want to, just discharge at full speed the whole way and get this thing done in about 9 days and only have to monitor once. Now that's, I don't see that as extremely realistic, but that's why you put limits in these permits. That's why we have these permits in the first place, is to say, well, we don't think this is going to be what you're going to do, but let's go ahead and have a cap on that to protect. So, that's just one of the places in this permit where there are no limitations. We've got like arsenic. There's no maximum daily amount they can discharge. There's a monthly average limit. I think with selenium, there's no limit, and a couple of other heavy metals that we're seeing in a whole bunch of these other states. These water permits, like the one we're dealing with here, do have limits.
Okay, well, so and I hate to quote somebody who's not here, but I'm sure that you heard Keith Johnson, the director of the Southern Environmental Law Center. He was one of the other people that spoke there, and that's one of the things that he said is this coal ash pond has been, I want to quote him, has been polluting groundwater and surface water for well over 30 years, while pollution continues today, and we know it's coming from the Berry plant site. End quote. So we know all that, and how many people showed up at this meeting? Now, admittedly, Paul Ripp and I weren't there either. We were slack asses on this one, but we'll definitely be there for the cap in place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't too many. I think it might have been 10 or 12 with maybe about a half and half mix of folks with kind of the prepared power company.
Okay, so same question. I would have the same question for ADEM that I have for the Public Service Commission. Why isn't this live streamed? Why couldn't I go in and, they could have set it up like just like a podcast live stream and have people be able to send tweet questions and all that kind of stuff too.
That's a little too transparent, I think.
We talked to him a little bit about that. They did put it on YouTube, so you can see the record of it if you want. They didn't live stream it because they were down in Mobile. They were concerned about getting all their tech set up correctly. I'm not going to speak for them, but that was kind of what they told me. We will have a blog up on our comments with our full PDF copy of our comments and what SCLC submitted, the YouTube stream, all that, so you can see what happened. But I think you already touched on the critical point a second ago when a lot of people weren't here for this one. This is permits for water and for air and all that kind of stuff. It's important, and we're there, but it's highly technical at this point. The big important piece that's going to be coming up soon, and if y'all are staying tuned to our channels, is going to be the permit to close this thing because they got to do water.
Should it stay or should it go? And here's something I wanted to discuss with you. If you watch that elementary school video that the Baldwin County Commission gave $15,000 towards, which is really laughable, by the way. If you paid attention to the video, that hardly any, so they're claiming that it would take 300 dump trucks taking a load a day, 35 years to move all this material over to Mississippi to a lined landfill. Well, if it's that kind of endeavor, there's a rail line right up not too far from here. Just build a rail line to it, put it in box cars. I really don't care. But the idea that we're going to let them leave this stuff on the side of the river is asinine. I think it's a problem in framing this issue. And if you frame it in a very short period, then you could see a scenario where some of the groundwater continues being polluted, but maybe it holds up. But if you start to look at this over time, you watch the way this river floods. I mean, this is a picture from just a kind of run-of-the-mill spring flood right here, and I can guarantee that every one of those trees you see are 10 feet deep, and that earthen dam is 10 feet deep underwater. What happens, 50 years from now, not to mention next year when we have another massive hurricane season? So we've had, and we don't want to get too much into this just yet, but we had a hell of a hurricane come through here.
Yeah.
Just a few days ago.
Right. Yeah.
And thank goodness it moved quickly. If that thing would have set out at the mouth of Mobile Bay, piling water up, who knows if it had topped this thing eventually.
Well, look what it did with Central now. Let's say that it went dead over that plant. What would have happened?
Well, and even going over the
we'd have never known about it because it's surrounded by electrified razor wire, and it's
what really concerns me is if we have a slow moving storm like you're talking about move north through the state. Because if you imagine this watershed, it goes up to Starkville and up to Sand Mountain over to the Atlanta.
It drains through Mobile County,
and that's what we saw in North Carolina when they had spills there. It was a sunny day 5 days after Hurricane Florence, and the rivers were still rising because that watershed was full. So that's what we're concerned about. But I think back to your point a minute ago, the challenge is that there's not really been a real discussion of the alternatives. There's been this kind of straw man set up to say it'll take 1 million years, it'll cost billions of dollars, it's impossible, and then it's easy to knock that argument over. But when you look at the reality on the ground, there's 250 million tons of coal ash being moved in the Southeast. So how come North Carolina can do it, South Carolina can do it, Georgia Power under the Southern Company umbrella can do it, but yet Alabama Power says it's impossible and has no real facts or details about why and why they chose what they're going to do.
They don't have anybody standing there with a shotgun saying you're going to move this stuff because they own the legislature.
Kate, what politicians do you see coming to your aid, if any, on this issue?
Well, I can say Jeff Collier at Dauphin Island signed a resolution saying that Dauphin Island supported clean closure of the coal ash pit at Plant Berry, and that we've got some of that on our website. But we talked to a lot of politicians, and they listen, and a lot of them I think are very sympathetic to our cause. But for better or for worse, if they don't have a direct avenue where it says this rule is something you've got to decide on, they'd rather not be involved. So this is going to come down to the State Department of Environmental Management. And let me just say, in North Carolina, that same kind of Department of Environmental Quality said the science clearly points to excavation and removal as the only safe way to deal with this problem, right? I may be paraphrasing a tiny bit. We can pull that quote, but the head of the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality said the science clearly says excavation and removal away from these rivers is the only way to deal with it. So I don't know how that's the math that works there, and it's different science and math here, because usually that's not how that works out.
Right.
I call it Alabama math.
That's it. Do things different down
Same
here.
reason we pay the football coach 100 times what we pay the university president. You know what I mean? Well, and to be full disclosure, the image on the screen is my hunting camp, and it is 3 miles from that damn pile of poison. So I got a dog in the fight.
So what I got to say is that, North Carolina citizens showed up and they told the Department of Environmental Quality, we're not going to accept this being left on the side of our river for 50 years from now or 20 years from now or next year during the hurricane season, us to all have to deal with the pollution, because, there ain't going to be any amount of money that Alabama Power pays. The Delta area, and that there's not going to be any way to clean that up. That's like, if you pour something nasty in the middle of a shag carpet, you can't get it all up. You're not going to clean the Delta. And so if a spill happens, there's not going to be any reversing that. It's going to be done. We're going to have time, and that's going to be the only thing that cleans that up. So leaving this here and expecting that Alabama Power is going to safeguard this ash on the side of a major flood-prone river, and not to mention it's unlined, and we already know it's leaking, and groundwater experts say it's going to continue leaking. So
30 years from now, they get to walk away. This is a closure plan. It's not just cap in place. It's a closure plan.
That's right.
They're not going to add any more to it. They're going to monitor it for 30 years. And then who do they put the property in a trust or something? Turn it over to the federal government as a Greensfield or Brownsfield site?
It'd be shed of liability. You can guarantee you that.
And
I think we should have a constitutional amendment just to, make Alabama Power Company invulnerable to lawsuits.
Even if you imagine a scenario where they take care of it for a long time, the things that are in this ash pond are not going to go away. The only two things that are going to happen is they're either going to leak out in the groundwater, which we very much expect is going to continue based on everything.
The only reason that the people's hair hadn't fallen out who live right down the stream from this is the age-old adage that the solution to pollution is dilution. There's all kinds of stuff getting out into the water here. It's just going downstream and being diffused out into the bay.
Right. But it going out into the water is patently illegal based on
patently by design. Why else would they have put this here? Yep. Not just convenience.
Well, that was the thinking in the 50s.
But I think people should recognize that we're seeing, like I said, massive removal efforts throughout the Southeast because it's the right thing to do. And you could find, I put the quote from DQ in the chat a second ago. You can find that. You can find Virginia legislature who was prescient enough to say, look, we need to study it. Okay, it's not going to cost as much as you try to convince us it is. Now that you've had an external study done, you need to remove it. Georgia Power just started doing it on their own. So Alabamians need to be paying attention. And these hearings that are coming up, I think if you care about the Delta, if you care about the Bay or Mobile River, you need to show up at those hearings and tell ADEM exactly how you
like
feel.
eating seafood from the Gulf Coast. Let's not just talk about people like me that have a camp within 3 miles of this pile of damn poison. It's everybody who likes shrimp, scallops, oysters, redfish, flounder, speckled trout, red snapper, grouper, amberjack. It'll all be done around here. If
you live on the Bay, if you make your living on, on the reputation of this area and tourism and all that, we don't need another black eye after the BP oil spill. But what I'd say is that meeting for Barry has not been announced yet. But if you pay attention to Mobile Baykeeper on social media, or you follow mobilebaykeeper.org/coalash, you're going to find out when that Barry meeting is held, and we need you there, and we need you to see what we got. We'll make sure you have talking points that you can recap that hit these big picture issues, and you can investigate the issue fully if you want to check it out. mobilebaykeeper.org/coalash.
And we'll be happy to carry it on the podcast or the RIP report. So, keep us posted, and Harry and I will show up for the meeting.
So the chairman of our Public Service Commission is allegedly going to launch her bid for governor next go round. That might be the only time you can ever put any pressure on her, Cade. Just little intel, man. Never hurt.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate your time. And if we can, if you would come back on and see us when we know when the Captain Place permit is going to be.
I'd love to. I'll shoot you an email. Again, y'all check us out on social media. Make sure you're getting our e-newsletters. You'll find all that. And Harry, I'll shoot you an email as soon as we know.
Great.
Yeah, we'll post that too.
Thanks, man. We appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank
have a
you.
good afternoon.